Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
The minister responsible for elections admits that things did not go as smoothly as possible today. The story coming up.
A chaotic scene at the advanced polls today. That story straight ahead.
The leader of the DNA reconsiders casting his vote here at the advanced polls. That story is coming up tonight, straight ahead.
Long Island MP Loretta Butler cast her vote at the polls today. That story is coming up straight ahead.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina McNeil. Topping news tonight, after hours of chaos and confusion for thousands of Bahamians voting in today's advanced poll, Prime Minister Perry Christie addressed reporters on today's challenges.
Are you confident in Chairman Hall's ability to conduct a successful and effective election on May 10th, considering what's happened today and then the gender equality referendum?
It is a matter that is under complete review. I actually had people down there with Mr. Hall who've had the experience of elections before, by name, senior officials, with a view to assisting as best they could. Whatever is in fact the position as a result of the reports that I've received during the course of this evening, if we have to act upon them, we will act upon them.
So there's a possibility we may not be parliamentary commissioner by election day?
The point is we're going to make the right decisions for the country, and it is an important process, and it would be totally inappropriate for me to draw a conclusion before I have a full report on what took place here. And I don't want to do that prior to the polls closing.
Are you disappointed by what you saw today, the amount of chaos that we experienced during the advance poll?
I didn't see it, but I heard it, and yes, you're always disappointed in a modern democracy when things don't go smoothly, when every effort was made to prepare.
It was a chaotic scene at the advanced poll today as thousands of voters clambered outside the Kendall Geolysix gym to cast their votes. The entire process got off to a shaky start as voting began nearly an hour and a half behind schedule, leaving frustrated voters standing on long lines for hours. There were also major issues inside polling stations after ballot boxes arrived late, voters' cards were stamped with the wrong dates, and some voters were turned away. Kyle Joaquin sought to get answers from government officials about the pandemonium at the polls.
Frustration turned into outrage as Bahamians waited for hours on long lines that extended out the door and snaked around the Kendall Geolysix gymnasium. The poll was scheduled to open at 8 a.m. However, it wasn't until around 9:30 that voters were let in to cast their ballots. There were also reports of ballot boxes arriving late to the site. It caused a chaotic scene as people grew more and more impatient and disgusted with the process. Have you been briefed on what's happening inside? As yet?
No, I haven't had a briefing.
What are your thoughts on the advanced polling starting late? Really good? An hour and a half late.
I have no comment to make at this time.
There are calls for something to be done with the parliamentary commissioner. Any thoughts on that, is it? Any response to that?
You heard me, right? I said I have no comment to make at this time.
Oh, I did that. About 2 hours later, reporters were finally given some sort of an explanation from Minister responsible for elections, Dr. Bernard Nottage.
Clearly, it's not going as freely as we would wish, but what I am happy about is that I think that the poll workers are well organized and the voting public are very cordial and accommodating, and I think that we should get it done without too many hitches.
But when asked what went wrong,
I'm not able to comment on that at the present time. I think I told you that this morning.
Nottage refused to comment once again. Just about all day, thousands of voters stood in lines in the hot sun waiting for their chance to cast their ballot, many of which were turned away either because their name was not on the list for the advanced poll or some other reason. There were also reports of incidents at polling stations abroad. Now, they brought more barricades out here around midday to try and bring some sort of order to the line. But the problem is, once you get towards the end of the barricade, it's pretty much a free-for-all to get through the doors. It was gazetted that both the Kendall Isaacs Gymnasium and Thomas A. Robinson National Stadium would serve as advanced polling stations. However, when voters got there, they were all sent to the gymnasium. All this comes as concerns still linger over the Parliamentary Registration Department's ability to effectively conduct next week's general election, given the troubles with last year's gender equality referendum. Our news team made our way inside the gymnasium late in the afternoon to speak with Parliamentary Commissioner Sherlin Hall, but was informed that he was in a meeting at his office. We then headed to the Parliamentary Registration Department to see if we could get some sort of an explanation.
Wait a second. You want me to call back after 5 o'clock to make an appointment to see him for another day? Wow.
But that wasn't the response we were looking for, so we proceeded upstairs to the Parliamentary Commissioner's office. On our way up, we ran into the Attorney General, the Deputy Prime Minister, and Dr. Nottage, all leaving Hall's office, none of whom would comment. So we waited outside Hall's office until this happened.
I need you to come downstairs, please.
Any reason why we coming downstairs?
I'm instructed not to come downstairs.
So we have to come downstairs, okay.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
So have they told you when we'll be able to speak to Mr. Hall?
They didn't, I guess so. But they just want you to come downstairs for now.
Our news team and other members of the media all escorted downstairs by police. So after waiting around for the Parliamentary Commissioner, we were eventually escorted downstairs by police, still with no answers. But our news will keep you updated as this story progresses. Reporting from the Parliamentary Registration Department for our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Well, voters continued to vent their frustrations as they waited on long lines in the sweltering heat for hours. Our Jasmine Brown has that angle.
The scene at the polls was chaotic this morning as officers had to barricade off certain areas to ensure frustrated voters stayed in line.
The process is beginning on the inside. Anyone with cell phones will not be permitted to come through with your cell phones. Please put those away.
This was the scene as tensions mounted outside the polling station that was slated to open at 8 this morning. But that did not happen as ballot boxes arrived around 8:20 and the first set of voters were not allowed inside until an hour later. Many of the voters we spoke to called the process a complete mess.
My opinion, I think it's a total disgrace to the Bahamian people. We deserve better than this.
Well, I have to catch a 10 o'clock flight, and we're supposed to start from 8 o'clock, and I'm still on the line, and we haven't started yet, and it's after 9 o'clock.
Freetown constituent Ursula Roker says she was standing on the line with her autistic 23-year-old son for hours and was only allowed to register after pleading her case to poll workers.
It's mayhem in there. If it wasn't for my child, Justin, I would have walked out, but I had to do it for him. It's a total disgrace, the setup in there.
Even elderly voters were left to stand in the scorching heat.
And in 1962, we got the permission to vote, and from then I've been voting to every election since. And so to wait is common, but when you have your senior people.
Inside the gym, poll workers scrambled to process voters. Some voters left the room with the wrong date stamped on their voters' cards. Meantime, candidates we spoke to had mixed reactions to the chaos.
One word: chaos, madness, unprepared, catastrophic. Pick any one of those.
I think if you look around, what you see is chaos.
Very good crowd. Bahamians are coming out to do what they need to do. The police, the defense force, and others need to vote, and they're doing so in a very manly way. No one is raising no hell yet, so, it's still cool. Let's hope the hot sun don't bring on any stupidness.
The parliamentary registry is a mess.
Well, it's a little mixed up, they haven't have it organized, but they're getting it under control.
But it's great. The democracy is alive. Those who wish to vote will be able to exercise that. And me, I'm going to the beach.
Just over 8,000 people qualified to vote in the advanced poll. Police Commissioner Allison Greenslade, who also voted today, says there were no major incidents to report. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Following issues with the Parliamentary Registration Department, many are questioning its ability to carry out its responsibilities on Election Day. The leader of the DNA says it should never be this bad. Giorgio Bain reports.
Thousands turn up to cast their vote here at the advanced poll at the Kendall Isaacs Gym, forming long lines that seem to wrap around the building, making the DNA leader Branford McCartney reconsider his vote today, especially after finding out that there were issues with his poll workers. As McCartney arrived at the Kendall Isaacs Gym to vote this morning, he was met by the party's angry poll workers who discovered that none of their names made the list.
Why is that? It should never be like this. This should never ever be like this. And people are turning away. I'm reluctant to go on the line and wait for 2.5 hours. Very, very reluctant to do that. So I think I'll be voting on election day.
Last week, the DNA faced an uphill battle as it attempted to register its poll workers to cast their ballots in the advanced poll. After an angry back and forth, McCartney says they were eventually allowed to register before the deadline, so he is not sure what went wrong today.
The polling started an hour late, I'm told. The lines are extremely, extremely long. People have been standing in the lines for more than 2 hours. And for the DNA, we have hardly any of our advanced poll workers on the list of the registry to vote. Notwithstanding the fact that we turned it in.
McCartney, who has often questioned the competence of the staff at the Parliamentary Registration Department, says if the advance poll is any indication of how the voting process will happen on election day, the country is in big trouble. McCartney said it was nothing like this 5 years ago, and a few simple changes could have made the difference.
Having the register out on time, and perhaps having, I understand there are just 2 lines here, perhaps having another venue, as they did previously in previous elections.
Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Bain.
Well, leader of the official opposition and Long Island incumbent Loretta Butler Turner also slamming the state of confusion as she voted in today's advance poll. Here's April Sands.
Butler reacts to the lack of organization here at the polls today, calling it a small portion of what will happen on May 10th. Amid the chaos at Kendall Isaacs Gym, a beaming Butler Turner arrived just after 12 to mark her ex. As she made her way through a rowdy crowd of voters, the first female leader of the official opposition kept her cool, asserting today is a big day.
I think it's important that every Bahamian exercises their constitutional right to vote, to choose the government of their choice, to vote for the individual of their choice. It's always wonderful. I've never refrained from voting. The only concern I have here today, obviously, is the lack of, or what appears to be a lack of organization. But I hope that everything is clarified between now and next week. In confusion, who knows what can happen. I'm hoping that this is certainly not going to lend to confusion at the end of the exercise.
Butler Turner says while there might be a certain pride in exercising your democratic rights, she's hoping the government can make the experience easier for people, particularly for residents on the Family Islands. She said she's concerned about her constituents on Long Island on Election Day.
Well, this is just a small portion of what the Parliamentary Registration Department can expect on May the 10th, which is just 6 days away. And I think that they're going to have to do some quick assessments as to what happened today so that we can mitigate against this moving forward. Certainly, if this is what we're having in New Providence, I'm on my way to Long Island now. I want to ensure that certainly the Family Islands are also looked at and that we have order and that there is not this state of confusion.
Reporting for our news, I'm April Sands.
Still to come on our news, the 3 major parties rally up supporters on the eve of the advance poll. Stay with us.